going to hear from Dyche in a second, but Martin, how do you look at this? Arsenal, you're Arsenal, going to a club, Everton, and you've reminded us many occasions, and you're right to do it, a club you still have a huge amount of affection for as well, because you pulled on the jersey of Everton. In Arsenal, is this the best or worst first opponent that Dyche could have wished for?
Well, I'd look at it the other way. I think it's the best opponent for Everton because there's nothing to lose. And I've looked at the Everton games recently, and Jim, it's you look at it, they give the ball away far too cheaply in midfield. The back two, and you've got Connor Cody and talkSPORT in there, two big characters drop far too deep, too quickly. They give too much space and time. There's no pressure on the ball. Scoring a lot of goals from distance. And they just need to push. They need to get into play people's faces. They need to be, and Sean Dyche will demand that. You've seen the players doing bleep tests all week. There's a message that he wants to change the culture. You know, it's been well publicised. Is it propaganda? It's kind of sending a message. I'm in charge. I'm going to challenge you. You're going to have to work hard. And everybody will be in the faces of those Arsenal players.
Do you like
so therefore, it's a difficult game for Arsenal.
Do you like what he's done, Martin? He's asked every member of Everton's squad to answer a questionnaire to understand the issues that have seen them fall into a relegation fight.
We should do that in here, Jim, shouldn't we? I don't know.
Depends
what they write. Depends what they write, doesn't it? It's interesting that he hasn't been able to ask them, and he's probably felt it's better to write things down, which tells you a little bit really about what players feel, that they don't really want to say anything in case it's held against them. But yeah, I mean, he's doing everything he can, Jim, isn't he? It's something that he's used in the business world. He wants to try and get feedback quickly. He needs to learn quickly. What he has to do, of course, is then impart his knowledge on the players and get them to play in the way he wants, gets them to behave in the way he wants. And I think that might be a reasonable quick fix, because when you think of what's happening at Goodison, the way the fans are there, the atmosphere, he wants players that are going to get into the Arsenal players' faces. And that will be I'm pretty certain that's going to be happening.
Simon, I'm coming your way, but Martin, the thing is this, these are the same players under Frank Lampard.
They are.
So how does Dyche get a tune out of them?
Well, look,
and on top of that, there's no Anthony Gordon.
I've looked at it tactically. You can look now at Y-Scout. It's there. It's available for certain people. I've looked at all the goals they conceded, Jim. They give the ball. They don't take enough care with the ball in midfield. And then the back line does not get into position. When you're in possession, be in position. What I mean by that is, don't stand and admire, or maybe if you're fearful in thinking, look, that lot are going to lose the ball, get up the pitch. If you haven't got pace, you need to be even tighter to that halfway line. Condense the play. And that's what they will do against Arsenal. And Arsenal but Arsenal in great form, Jim. This is an Arsenal team really coming into its own right now, and it's a challenge for them. There hasn't been a good ground for Arsenal in recent years, but Sean Dyche will try and make the team, improve the team. But
I think Danny Murphy said there's not enough quality in the Everton side.
Well, you know what? I think if you can get back to, I know the Ancelotti years when you had Calvert-Lewin tapping in from distance, start raining crosses in, change the style of their play into channels, get the ball wide, feed it into the box, then I think you can make something of this team. I do feel, Jim, I mean, if you look back to the Ancelotti era, and it's best saying this on a radio and writing in a paper, there's not too many that weren't there available. I know there was Richarlison and Rodrigo and, two quality players. Luca Dean was allowed to leave where they didn't want him anyway. And Alan, for some reason, was deemed not good enough in the Lampard era. I would have played him. But there we are. People have different choices. I get Iwobi out of the midfield, Jim, and put him in a wide position. As well as he's played at times, he's given the ball away too often. So these things won't happen with Sean Dyche. Right. I expect that to improve.
When Sean Dyche came into this studio with you and I, Simon, we knew we were in for a more than decent half hour, 3/4 of an hour. At the end of it, I remember you walking out thinking, yeah, wow, there's a bit of wow factor there.
Oh, yeah, he's very strong, he's very forthright. I also felt he'd be very remarkably difficult to manage if you're an owner, because I don't think it's just a straightforward thing with Sean. But I think as a football manager doing the job that you want him to do, he's straight down the barrel. Danny's observation about Everton not having enough quality, he's right. If they're looking to be mid-table, they've got enough quality to be better than three sides. That's the answer to this particular question right now in the here and now. And I think the question is, have Wolves and other sides that are out of the relegation zone improved enough and have enough quality to be able to overcome a regalvanised, more focused, more disciplined, more resolute Everton side that Sean Dyche will bring? He can only bring an application and a motivation and an exhaustion of every last sinew from these Everton
players.
Has he
got the goals in the building? Would be one of the questions.
Well, as well as that,
can he stop the goals going in the other way?
Has he got any new signings to deal with? The answer to that is no, he doesn't. Now, those around them in this relegation fight did business, but Everton didn't. And Dyche was asked about this lack of transfer activity the other night.
I came in late, quite obviously. One thing I can assure you, through the whole club, the owner, the chairman, Kev Thauer, myself, working. Everton fans, I get this undercurrent of they want honesty. Well, I'm telling you, I was physically here all the way through the process. Phone calls, crunching numbers, analytics, going through the market, possible trades, possible situations. We all still know January is a tough window. The numbers still have to align and the players still have to align. It's simple as that, you know. The club's position, of course, has to align. That, you know, every player wants that. But you know yourself, some players go, "Oh, I prefer not. I want to go somewhere else," somewhere else, because of the literal position of the club. Everything was being done.
Everything was being done. But the upshot was, Simon, it still produced nothing.
Well, this is it. I mean, it was scant consolation for the Everton fans to hear that you put up a good fight, because a good fight is one you win, not one you participate in. So he's put up a good fight to get player transfers and got nothing. But that's irrelevant. I do like to hear, in contrast to what myself and Martin were debating off air about, that Sean did index himself to the board. He did say that I and the board are working repeatedly hard and endlessly. I would suspect there was longer than 48 hours. Whilst they were negotiating Sean Dyche's contract, I would have assumed in the 2 or 3 days that it took for them to deliver Sean Dyche's contract, that they were also working on targets that Sean Dyche had outlined. Because there would be reasonable assumptions that they get them to a point and then Sean Dyche doesn't sign, they don't sign the player. But I would assume there had been a little bit more than 48 hours. The fact is, players don't want to go to Everton at this moment in time, which is a tragedy for this football club.
Why would Andre Ayew want to go to Forest, where he's ended up, and not Everton?
Because Everton is toxic. Why would you want to go into a bag of trouble right now where you've got everything against you? You've got a playing squad that's perceived to be not good enough. You've got a fan base that's disillusioned. You've got a new manager coming in the door. You've got a board that apparently can't come to games. And you've got a situation where Nottingham Forest are on the up. Nottingham Forest are in feel-good land.
Maybe Sean didn't want Ayew as well. You know, he's a free transfer.
Maybe, but well, they were pushing for him yesterday, even as recently as yesterday.
Were they?
But Simon, you always say that outside noise shouldn't affect the players as to what they do in the pitch. So how do you square this? Because
I say that it shouldn't, but I believe that people will use it as an excuse. Players will use, as will managers, and sometimes owners will use anything as an excuse to excuse themselves from their own shortcomings. The fact of the matter is, the players on the pitch, really, when it comes down to it, are the ones that put Everton in the cart. They'll be the ones that get the last amount of blame. It'll be the manager that goes before them. It'll be the owner that gets the I was going to say a rude word there, but gets the telling off before them. But ultimately, there is just about enough talent in that Everton side to not to be bottom of the league or second to bottom.
I think we talked a lot about people buying players, and if you look at, say, the Newcastle situation, and I know that maybe not a good example, but they spent reasonable money, haven't they? I think it's the work Eddie Howe's done with the players that were already there, Jim, which is the bin that's most stunning. Almiron and Joe Linton are unrecognisable. I think the Everton fans will be hoping that's something that can happen at Everton.
With Dyche, yeah.
That, of course there's no signings, Jim, but they're all relatively new signings.
Were
anyway.
you in the
Talk about the money they've spent.
Martin, I didn't think Lampard would be successful at Everton, and so it proved to be right. Did you think when the appointment was made, did you think it was, this could be very tricky, or Frank we trust?
I felt that he'd have learned a great deal from the Derby job, from the Chelsea situation, and would have taken, he did keep the club up last year in a similar situation, which he inherited when he arrived at the football club, but wasn't able to make the next step. So I'm immensely surprised that his career has not gone from strength to strength.
But Martin, is Simon not right? It's the Everton players who've put Everton in the cart.
It is, but what I'm saying is...
it cost Frank his job.
Yeah, but I looked at it and I thought, well, tactically, they were in the wrong positions. Now, whether you drop off as a group because you're fearful of the players in front of you and you don't trust them, but they were looking like the back line were looking like they're going to lose it. Well, actually, I don't see that in the Liverpool back line. I see the Liverpool back line up on the halfway line, Jim, in good position.
Whilst losing.
Yeah, but they still have a way of playing and they retain that. I understand that. But, they've got to improve. They can only improve. And if they start to improve, yes, they're capable of getting out of trouble.
And of course, the big question here, Simon, is how will the supporters behave tomorrow? So Dyche has urged fans, part your issues just for a little while and reconnect with the team. Do you think they will?
No chance. They'll do precisely what they want. And there's no legislation for that. Is it constructive? Does it achieve anything? Is it going to get Fired Mashiri out the door any quicker? Or is it going to get Bill Kenwright and Denise Baxendale out the door any quicker? Probably not.
Those fans, if they see the reaction on the pitch, they'll quickly unify.
Well, we hope so.
Let me tell you,
that
special group of fans.
Therein lies the conundrum. If those players grasp the nettle, understand their responsibility and their obligation, and the manager can come in and have that bounce, then it'll get the place focusing in the right direction rather than the toxicity.
Same players, but been asked to play slightly different positions, Jim. Higher up the pitch and actually against those Arsenal players. Deep down, I think if Arsenal were not to win this game, I think it could affect their league title hopes. In the long run, I think Everton are capable of getting out of it. So if you ask me, having played for both clubs, which one club do I want to win the most? I'd say Arsenal at the moment because they haven't won a Premier League in 20 years. But I think Everton can still survive. But that instantaneous reaction from Sean Dyche needs to be there. It needs to be evident tomorrow.
Yeah.
And if it isn't, then I fear for Everton.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.